After my mother passed away last summer, my father became deeply depressed. He couldn't bear to stay in the city anymore and told us we'd be moving soon. My sister and I, both young, me at 9 and her at 7, were heartbroken. We didn't want to leave our friends and everything we knew. Father said we would be moving to a big fancy farmhouse upstate. A farmhouse, we imagined? A rundown barn with cows and no friends for miles? Father said, "You have each other, don't you? Have each other, don't you?" In a few months, we found ourselves in that old farmhouse. It wasn't as terrible as we feared. The house was dusty and ancient, with all the old furniture still inside. We spent hours exploring every corner, finding old toys and forgotten things. Sometimes, we discovered jewelry, boxes, makeup, and fancy dresses. Other times, it was a small toy spinner and puzzles. The house itself seemed to have a life of its own. Creaks in the floorboards echoed through empty rooms, and drafts whispered through broken windows. One day, while exploring the attic, my sister and I found an old, faded portrait of a woman. Her eyes seemed to follow us, and the longer we stared, the more unsettling her gaze became. We quickly turned away, trying to shake off the feeling of being watched. Father spent most of his time working in the fields. But we were never lonely. We climbed the apple tree in the backyard and explored new parts of the house. Father was happy to see us enjoying ourselves, though we never told him the real reason we loved the farmhouse. We felt like Mother was still there with us. At first, my sister was scared and didn't believe it. But I was sure it was true. A few days after moving in, we noticed something strange. A cup appeared on our nightstands each morning, even though it hadn't been there the night before. I told my sister, "It must be Mom. She's looking after us." Mother's favorite spot was an old wooden chair in the living room. We would push it into the corner, but whenever we felt overwhelmed, it would mysteriously move to the center of the room. One night, while watching TV, we saw the chair moving on its own. It scraped loudly across the floor and stopped right in front of us. My sister's eyes widened in fear. "Did you see that?" "Yes," I said, trying to stay calm. "It's Mom. She's moving the chair so she can be close to us." My sister finally believed me and whispered, "You're right. Mom just wants to be near us." From then on, we kept the chair in the middle of the room, where we felt she wanted it to be. One night, while my sister and I were lying in bed, we heard soft scratching noises coming from the walls. It was as if something was trying to get out. The scratching grew louder and more insistent, making us huddle under the covers in terror. When Father came to check on us, he found nothing out of the ordinary. But the noises stopped abruptly as soon as he left. As the days went by, the house seemed to become even stranger. We'd find items in places they shouldn't be, our toys scattered around the floor. A book that had been on the shelf, now lying open on the table. The feeling of being watched grew stronger, and sometimes at night, we'd hear footsteps echoing through the hallways when we were alone. The sense of presence, once comforting, began to feel more evasive and unsettling. One particularly eerie evening, as a storm raged outside, we were listening in the living room with the old wooden chair in its usual spot in the center of the room. The wind howled through the broken windows, and the lights flickered ominously. Suddenly, the chair began to rock back and forth on its own. We watched in horror as it picked up speed, creaking loudly. With each movement, the room grew cold, and our breaths formed small clouds in the air. My sister clutched my hand, trembling. The next day, we found strange, muddy footprints leading from the living room to the stairs. The prints were too large to be ours, and seemed to have been left by something with a heavy, dragging gait. We tried to ignore them, but they appeared again and again, always leading to the attic. Father insisted it was just the house settling, but the atmosphere became more oppressive with each passing day. One afternoon, while exploring the attic again, I stumbled upon a dusty old mirror, covered with a heavy sheet. When I pulled off the sheet, the mirror revealed a reflection of the room that looked different from reality. The room in the mirror was darker. I could see a shadowy figure standing behind me. Though when I turned around, there was no one there. I quickly covered the mirror and fled the attic. For the first time, I felt so scared. A doubt in me, if it was Mom at all. We never spoke about it again. Years passed, and we continued to experience the growing number of eerie occurrences. After I left for college, I missed the farmhouse and my sister. I hardly had time to call her. One morning, while I was at the library, I found a box of old magazines and discovered an article about the farmhouse. My heart raced as I read it. The article was about a family that had lived in the farmhouse before us. The widow and her 2 children had lived there. In a fit of despair, she poisoned her children's milk and laid them in their beds before hanging herself from the chandelier in the middle of the living room. The article even included a chilling photo of the woman hanging from the chandelier the wooden chair knocked over beneath her. The image of the woman's lifeless body swinging gently from the chandelier filled me with dread. I felt an icy chill run down my spine. I had to tell my sister Isabel. It had been too long since we talked. I picked up the phone and dialed her number. Father answered. His voice was strained. "Is that you, Emma? I found something awful. An article about the farmhouse. It's about a woman who..." Father cut me off, his voice trembling. "Isabel isn't here. She's not here." Confused, I asked, "What do you mean? Where is she?" Father's voice was filled with sorrow. "After you left, she started acting strange. She'd sit in the middle of the living room day and night. And one night, I found her there, hanging from the chandelier." My blood ran cold, listening to my father. "What? How did this happen?" Father's voice cracked with sadness. "She believed it was the only way to be close to your mother again." I hung up, shaking. The farmhouse, once a place of comfort, now felt like a trap. The memories of the presence turned dark and haunting. Every night I would hear whispers and creaks that made me jump. I'd wake up in a panic, convinced I saw shadows moving just out of sight. The old mirror's reflection haunted my dreams, with shadowy figures lurking in the corner of my vision. Returning to the farmhouse was out of question. What had once felt like a safe haven now seemed like a place trapped in a dark history. I tried to forget the farmhouse, but its shadow followed me every time I closed my eyes. I saw the figure in the mirror, the chair moving on its own. And the chilling photo of the woman hanging from the chandelier. The farmhouse had become more than just a place. It was a haunting memory of how quickly something cherished could turn into a living nightmare.
If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends and family.